Bleeding brakes sucks. It's a pain in the backside. You end up with a low pedal. It's all spongy. You're doing the whole communicado between you and your buddy or your wife or whatever. Pump it, hold it, all that stuff. What I have here is a system from Phoenix Systems that will eliminate all of that. So when you have that massive spill, we're not doing that. We're doing this. So check this out. So whether you're working on your classic car, like our Datsun back here, that project, or it's your daily driver, when it comes time to replace a brake line or a caliper and you need to bleed the brakes, this is what you want to use. What this does is instead of pumping and pushing air out of it, it refills the system from the brake bleeder up to the reservoir. So if you can think about like you got a glass of soda that's carbonated, what happens to all those air bubbles? They rise to the top. That's what this does, and let me show you how. Okay, so let's open this thing up and see what we've got inside. Now, what we have in here is a manual that shows us how to use it. We've got a bunch of fittings. We've got our actual gun that injects the fluid. We've got a container that holds our fluid, a reservoir, and a million different, not really a million, but quite a few different hose connections to connect this thing to the vehicle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this thing set up and show you how it works on our Datsun. Okay, so first thing we want to do is we want to set up our tool. This particular scenario, we are going to reverse bleed. So to reverse bleed, what happens is you fill this reservoir here, Jesus, that's strong. You fill this reservoir with brake fluid, okay? You connect your hose, like you fill it with brake fluid. This is your pickup hose. So you're going to connect your hose going to the tool to this hose. You fill this with brake fluid. Okay? Now, once you do this, what you want to do is bleed this system. So what's going to happen is, as I push this, it's going to draw fluid from here, up into here, into the system, and then I'm going to inject that fluid into the brake caliper. I don't want to inject any air, so what I can do is just put this in here, or put this in one of these hoses, such as I have here. There it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that. I'm going to take my tool, I'm going to insert it into here, and I am going to pump fluid from the reservoir up through the tip. When I get this right to the tip and I'm fully full of fluid, I am good to go. At that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my reservoir and my tool over to the car. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my tire off, I've turned my wheel here. This is my brake bleeder. I've taken the cap off of my master cylinder. I have my tool here, and what I want to do is I want to make sure that my reservoir is above where I am going to put my fluid in. So obviously this would be a lot heavier with some fluid in it, and it's hanging here like this. So let me just move this over here. Now I've got this tool with this really nice point on it. I am going to take that point and I am going to insert it into the brake bleeder. Once I get it in the brake bleeder, I am going to loosen the brake bleeder, and now I'm going to start to pump brake fluid into the caliper. So I'll pump it, and I'll keep track of it, and I'll watch it go, and then I can close this and remove that. Now at this point I can check my reservoir. Now if I got a bone dry system, what I can do is figure out how much my reservoir holds and fill this about that much. And then you'll have to top off for your lines. Most of us kind of have a good idea how much fluid the reservoir holds, so you just estimate that over here and you can pump it in there. Now, as you pressurize this, what happens is it's going to force the air up and out of the master cylinder. Now, one of the key things to doing this is you have to have a tool to hold the brake pedal down. Okay, you got to hold the brake pedal down so that that valve, that master cylinder, is open, and it'll allow all the air from here to come up through the master cylinder. So put a tool in there, hold the brake pedal down prior to doing this, and then just fill it, compress it in there, close the valve, take a look at where you're at, and once you get your reservoir, say about halfway full, I would start, seeing what kind of pedal you got and seeing how much air is coming out of it. And that's pretty much how the reverse bleeding works. So now this system's pretty versatile. So if you wanted to do this in the opposite direction, what you could do is you could use this tip and do the same thing with your reservoir, okay, and force the fluid from the master cylinder down and out through the caliper, okay? The thing that you want to have is another jug to catch it off of the caliper, all right? With one of these little fittings that's going to go right on the brake bleeder. And the other thing that you want to have is a one-way check valve. So what's going to happen is your fluid's going to come down to the bleeder, go out the bleeder, but when you stop pumping, it's not going to allow air to come back into the system, okay? So it's a one-way valve. That's another way to inject into the system. Okay, so there's yet another way that you can do this. You can do this by suction bleeding, all right? So what's going to happen is you're going to take the suction end and you're going to put one of your fittings on it like this, and you're going to connect that onto your brake bleeder. Then on this end over here, you're going to connect one of your hoses. So now what you got is you're going back to your reservoir and you're pulling off of brake bleeder. So you'd fill your reservoir, connect this to your brake bleeder, and as you pumped like this, it would create a suction. I can feel it sucking on there right now. It would create a suction on this side. It would pull the fluid from the reservoir down through the system, out the brake bleeder, and into your catch can. So that's how you'd vacuum bleed the system. So I figured I'd come over here and I'd show you the actual vacuum bleeding. Okay, so I got my little connection here on my tool. I connect it right onto my brake bleeder like that. Now, at this point, which is going to be helpful to me, is to have my reservoir lower than my caliper, and then I would connect my end to my hose, and as I pumped like this, what's going to happen is I'm going to create a suction here. It's going to pull the fluid through the system, down here and into my catch can, and then once I get solid fluid and no air coming through here, I would close my bleeder, and that's all there is to it. Okay, so I showed you how the system works. This works really good whether you have a dry system, you replace the line, you can change your fluid. What's nice about it is if you reverse the system, okay, you're not drawing maybe some crap from the master cylinder through the whole system, maybe clogging a brake line or whatever, okay? So let's say you want to change fluid, you could pump it out of the master cylinder and then put fresh fluid in here and force that fresh fluid up to the master cylinder, and then you got a fluid change and you don't have any air in the system. So that's just one more thing. So the pros of this are ease of use. You can use it by yourself. The cons are, it costs a couple of bucks, but I think it's well worth it. So, check it out. Click my links below, and what I have with the folks at Phoenix is offering you a 15% discount on the purchase, and that's just for my customers. They were gracious enough to send me this. I already have one anyways, but now I have two. But I wanted to show you the system on a nice, clean, shiny one, not the nasty, beat-up one that I've been using for the last probably 5 years. So thanks for tuning in. Good luck on your project, and stay tuned for more tools and reviews.